Good morning, everybody. It's half past ridiculous, and we're seeking a sentiomentium. Last week, we talked about language. Well, we started talking about language and got off on a tangent and talked about a whole bunch of stuff, and that's probably what's going to happen again today. We've got a nice round studio audience coming in. Maybe we'll get some questions today and get off on some more detailed subjects, because we can't really jump into detail until we know what you guys want to know about. All we can do is touch on the broad topics and just see where that goes. So, good morning, Carl.
Good morning, John. I hope it's not too early for you.
I'm used to it now. I'm getting there.
Yeah, the language theme that we spoke of last week, it's such a vast field, and it's where most people get tripped up, along with the kind of the hidden contracts and the hidden agreements that we end up making without realizing what's going on. But I think the reason that we kind of go off on a tangent is because the wordage, the language that gets used, it kind of fits into all of the subjects and all of the areas that we can get trapped. So, you know, we can go off and discuss all sorts of different subject matter, you know, down to the money system, down to the legal system, down to registrations, schooling, vaccinations. I mean, it's a huge subject, as you well know. And trying to get everybody listening to get to grips with what we've spent collectively the last 25 years researching is not necessarily an easy process. But we do want to try and simplify it for you guys, and we kind of want to hone in on what is important to you, but do give you a broad understanding of or comprehension of what it is that you're stepping into.
Yeah, the big problem with the language aspect of this, when you're doing written documents, it's not so bad because you can take a week and write the document. But when you're standing face to face with someone and they're using all of this verbiage that is not what you expect, not what you would normally hear all the time, it's really challenging to stay in that mode of language, to not trip up, to not say the wrong thing. And part of the reason, or a big part of the reason why we bring this up, why we give the examples of these languages, is so that people will question it. They'll sit and they'll think about it for a little while, and they'll look at the words they're using, look at the words they typically normally use, and see where those are going to cause problems. And then when you are face to face and having to do this at 150 miles an hour, you're going to make less mistakes. You're going to make less errors. You're going to sit back. They'll ask, you'll get asked a question. Don't just respond immediately. Don't respond with the first thing that comes to your head, because it's probably not the language they're working with. Pause, take a breath, think about the question. Think very carefully about the question. And if it takes 30 seconds, if it takes a minute, take a minute. But be patient, take your time. Don't let them rush you into answering the questions, because that's one of the tricks they use to make sure you're going to trip up. Pause, take a breath,
Yeah.
Think about the question. If they pressure you, know that there's something in there that if you don't do it wrong, you're going to win, because otherwise they wouldn't pressure you. I mean, this is a pretty standard concept throughout. If somebody wants you to do it really fast, really quick, you know, and it's not something that has to happen really fast, really quick, there's probably something untoward going on there. So be aware of that. And the best suggestion I can make to everyone is it doesn't matter who you're talking to, whether it's a cop or a judge or anything, unless there is pending danger. The piano is falling and you have to move. Take your time. Go very, very slowly. Think very carefully about the questions. Think very carefully about the words you're going to use when you answer that question, if you're going to answer that question. Now, there's many people out there who would say that the best answer to a question is a question in this respect. And I, for the most part, I'm one of those people, because I understand the concept of the master asks, the servant answers. So who is the master in the situation? And typically it is you. If you're dealing with a public servant, there's the word, right? Who's the master in this? Servant. Is the public servant the master? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, their original position was to facilitate, was to make your desires happen. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the population is not adult enough, excuse my generalization, but they're not adult enough to make the right decisions when it comes to stuff like that. And there's a lot of greed, there's a lot of selfishness, there's a lot of self-centeredness, and this gets in the way. And this is part of the reason why the servants are now considered the masters, because they have taken, by necessity, they've taken on the role of the babysitter, because people are they're just not to the level where they can make adult decisions. And I'm there. I'm not saying that everybody is that way, but a lot of people are. I've made some really dumb decisions in my life too, and there were times when I needed a babysitter. I needed someone who's more adult to smack me upside the head and go, grow up. We've all been there. So, you know, anybody who thinks that they're not there, they're kidding themselves, because everyone has been there. Fortunately, we are growing out of that, and we're growing out of that very, very quickly. A lot of people now, you know, if they got handed $100 million, most of the people that I know, that I deal with on a daily basis, wouldn't just go out and buy everything and they can see. They would put those funds into making their community, making their neighbors' lives better, making, you know, society better. Whereas 15 years ago, if you got $100 million, you partied your face off and probably died from cocaine overdose. So it is changing, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And that's, you know, one of the wonderful things about doing a show like this is that because we're listening to people, we're talking to people, bringing up concepts that are not only ancient, but oftentimes really complex. I can see the change in the way they comprehend these concepts. And when I first started doing this, oh goodness, 15 some odd years ago, it was pretty rare to find anybody who could sit down for, you know, have a conversation for 10 or 15 minutes and they get it. Now, pretty much anybody I talk to, they don't have the detail, but they can see it. And they can see the change, they can see the difference that has to happen. So that's very encouraging that as a whole, the mean average of, what's the word I'm going to use, adultness in general people around is actually going up, which is an awesome thing to see.
I agree. You and I have both gone through that, talking to, as we refer to them, either sheeple or sleeple, is the term that gets used. I think I don't want to interrupt you, Carl, but this WFS Patrick in the chat. This is Patrick from Winnipeg, right? Come on. I don't know. That might be Patrick. It might be Patrick from Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Either way, come on in. Come on the voice channel. Love to talk to you. I'd love to hear what's going on with the WFS. I haven't been involved in quite a while.
He can't. Yeah, he can't hear him.
Oh.
Let me just type that.
Okay.
Because he's not in the panel yet.
Oh, that's right. He can't hear me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get it.
Okay, so yeah, just to carry on. While hopefully we can, if it is the Patrick that we think it is, then we can get him in. But
Awesome.
yeah, just to carry on and bring in a bit more about what you were referring to. Yes, the story was that the governments and the like were there to act as our representatives, to do the menial shit that we as the people didn't want to do on a daily basis. So we kind of left it to other people of responsible character to do for us. Turns out they weren't all that responsible as time went on, because instead of acting as public servants and doing what we tasked them to do, they've turned it the other way around. Now they are our leaders. They are
Well,
congressmen and senators that have made themselves a status above the people.
please qualify that, because they're not my leader. They
No, I know
assume
that. Yeah.
they assume the role of leader because nobody else will.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't have leaders per se. So yes, I mean, they're not my leaders. If anybody's ever said that to me directly, I usually get quite upset and tell them, you're not my leader and you'll never be my leader.
Yeah, I tell them
yeah,
I tell them they're not qualified.
Not qualified. Exactly. Yeah. So, but I mean, the whole process of what's happened to bring us to this status now has been a fairly slow process over a very, very long time. But what we're now finding, and as you just pointed out, John, that the last 20 years, and especially the last 5 to 10 years, the level of consciousness, the level of comprehension, the level of knowledge that the people and the population of the world is acquiring, and correctly acquiring, has been phenomenal. So now that there are questions, most people that are awake seem to understand and realize that society is messed up, that this isn't right, that we should not be put upon in the way that we are by our supposed representatives. Our employment is disappearing down the toilet. We're being asked to pay so that we can get water from the tap. We're being asked to pay for everything. And the main reason is to keep the people who are acting as our public representatives in positions of power. Not because we put them there, but because they want to stay there.
Yeah.
It's career politicians, it's about family. It's got nothing to do with your capacity to act as a good what's the word? Well, basically to act in that position and in that role in a responsible and adult and an honourable manner, and that's what's missing, and that's what we're coming back to. So the stuff that they've done over the years in the relation to language and legalese and the changing of how things occur, whereas we now have to apply and register and so on, it's all a big trick. And this is what we're trying to teach you guys, so that you can understand the trick, comprehend the trick, and stand against it to some extent, as much as you can, because you really everything is fear-based now. And I mentioned it last week. It gets to the point where now you get a brown envelope with a government logo on it, and most people shit themselves. They're so scared because they're not expecting this thing. What the hell is it? And they just go ballistic, nuts. And it's all fear. And all it is a damn letter. You just got a letter through the post. Why are you so scared? It's because of what they've done to bring that upon us. And that's what we want to remove from you guys, to lose that fear. Yeah. To be able to say, well, it's just a letter. I don't know what it's about. It's not even addressed to me. I've got no dealings with the government at the moment. Return to sender. And not worry about it.
Yeah. And Rob Menard brought up a concept years and years and years ago when he was discussing this. And And the point of bringing it up was to don't blame the low-level troops, because they, like the frontline guys in the government, because they have no idea. But he brought up the concept that government is a body of people providing services at the point of a gun, and which is, basically mafia, essentially. You're going to accept our protection, otherwise we're going to blow up your business. And I mean, everybody sees that. Pretty much everybody that's on these calls will recognize the how does that go now? Problem, reaction, solution paradigm that's been imposed on us.
Dialectic.
Yeah, where the government creates a problem, waits for a reaction, and then offers a solution. I mean, they looked at this in Star Trek for Next Generation, for crying out loud. There was a whole episode about exactly how that works, and all of these concepts, all of these informations, they've been brought out. They've been brought out in the movies, books, TV shows, all over the place, and a lot of people miss it. They don't get the message that's coming through. There was something else
funny,
I wanted.
John, just going into that, the Matrix movie was one I found was very much that, because my wife and I went to see it when it was released in the movies, the very first one, and we looked at each other countless times through that and said, do people know what that just said? What they actually meant by that?
That's right.
And we were looking around at the rest of the audience, and some of them was, oh, what a lovely movie, clap, 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 It was all about the special effects, and they just didn't get the message. But I did notice there were some doing the same, glancing to their companion at the same time that my wife and I were, because they obviously got it too.
Yeah. And it's all of this stuff has been brought out. A number of the groups that I've been involved with over the years, they bring up the idea that these folks can't do anything to us without notice. They have to tell us what they're going to do first, because of the concept of universal free will. And I don't know how accurate it is, but they brought up the concept that a lot of the ways that they do this is in the movies. And the movies, advertising, TV shows, that sort of stuff, that's where you're going to get your notice, for lack of a better term. But there's also a lot of truth there. The remedy is there as well, and how to not be stuck in this situation. Don't make the mistake of thinking that the remedy is going to be a gun and protesting and screaming and yelling and burning cars and throwing rocks through windows, because that's not an adult way to deal with this. Again,
the childlike behavior that we tend to refer to.
Yes, and Rob touched on this in one of his videos. He's got a whole bunch of these videos, and they are decent concepts. They're fairly accurate, and for the most part, what he's describing is the way it is. I mean, it's early research, so there's going to be a few errors in there, but from what I've seen, from what I've experienced over the years, they're pretty accurate. And one of the things he tried to instill in everyone, myself included, through the WFS, the World Freeman Society, when it was a going concern, was that a child complains, an adult claims. So when people say, we got to go protest, the first thing I think of is, well, how old are you? 4? Right? The 4-year-old stomps his feet and waves his hands in the air and goes, you're not the boss of me. The adult goes, well, what makes you think that you have authority? And it's the energy you put into the system. I mean, they're both going to do ultimately the same thing, or have the same goal, I should say. The outcome is going to be dramatically different between the two ways of looking at this. But when we advocate questioning, This is the adult route. This is, and making claims. This is the adult route to go. This is the grown-up way to deal with this. Someone says, you got to do this. Well, why? Why do I have to do this? What is the mechanism that gives you the authority to impose this upon me? Because there is no living being on the planet who actually is in a position of higher authority anywhere. It's only the authority you give them. Now, in an adult situation, some of these people, yes, they would have authority. Certainly. I mean, the forest ranger. If somebody's out there and they've got a forest fire built under a dead old dry stump and they're going to burn the forest down, yes, that I totally agree with the concept that the forest ranger can come and tell him to put his fire out. Now, that same forest ranger, if I'm not generating an issue with the forest, the best thing he can do is come over and have a nice weekend and leave. So you have to look at the limits of authority. Where does that authority limit, or where is the end of that authority? And it doesn't matter what system you look at, whether it's law enforcement or the legal system, services, any of those things. There's going to be a limit to that perceived authority at some point. And unless you question those limits, unless you make the claim that there are those limits, these people are just going to run amok. And that's what we're seeing now is the cop, because he has a gun, because he is there to protect, he thinks he can do pretty much anything he wants. And it's only in, I would postulate, a fairly rare situation where that individual actually knows where his authority ends. And, we see this, we've seen it recently with Randall Bean. Trumped up charges, they beat the snot out of him. They didn't provide a warrant. They didn't even identify themselves. The calls by Randall's lawyer to discover if he's actually still alive, if he's injured, if he's getting his medical attention, are being just basically ignored. These people think that they have carte blanche to do whatever they want. And it's by questioning these things, by bringing this to light, that we show them where the limits of their authority are. And anybody who's ever been in a position of authority, they can see the need for it. And in a lot of cases, yes, there is a need there. Especially now, where if you get 10,000 people, 20,000 people who are upset, they're going to go out and have a riot. So yes, okay, we need to quell that. We need to have them heard, certainly, but they shouldn't be permitted to go and destroy other people's property and just raise havoc. I can understand where it comes from. I can sympathize with it, but I don't agree with it. So, we're going to keep coming back to this. Question everything. And that's the one of the most important things that you can do in any of these situations. If you find the need where you need to have an automobile and you are not in a position to enforce your right to travel, they're probably going to tell you, well, you have to register this. Okay, fine. You're probably going to wind up registering it anyway, but still, question it. Why am I registering this? Registration is creating a trustee relationship, and I don't particularly want a trustee relationship. The lady at the front desk isn't probably going to know, so cut her some slack and say, look, take this to your supervisor. I need an answer to this question. Why am I obligated to sign away my property? And the more people that do this, the more people that question in that manner, do so in a way, or please do so in a way that is not threatening, that you're simply seeking information. You're not blaming anyone, because you put that energy into it and they're just going to block you. And they're just going to say, well, fine, we're not doing this. Go away. And unless you absolutely have to have it, you're out of luck. So try to be nice about it. You know, the old adage, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, is totally true in this situation. Know whether you absolutely need it. And if it's something that, you know, if you're running a business and you have to have a delivery truck, and if without it your business dies, that probably wouldn't be the place to question it. But if it's not something that's critical to your life, and you can certainly live without it, at least for a time, then yeah, that would be a perfect situation to jump on these people and say, look, you know, why are you doing this? Why do I have to sign this away? Why do I have to follow these rules when they don't really apply? And also, another big thing, Carl will back me up on this, never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. Especially when you do a statement. Or make a statement that you can't back up, most definitely, because those are the ones, that's where most of these people, most of the folks that I trained, that I dealt with the World Freeman Society, that's where they crash and burned, is when they were fishing. And don't do it. Please don't do it. If you're not sure, research it. Get to know what's going on first before you jump into that. Yeah, Clive, it says they've been there, done that. Usually you get smacked. It's not a pleasant situation.
Yeah, I think everybody has to bear in mind that this situation that we find ourselves in right now is not something that's occurred recently. This is something that's taken generations to bring into effect. So getting out of it is not going to be particularly easy and take 5 minutes to do. I would hope it can, but unfortunately the education of the people that whose power has been usurped is going to take a little longer than you know, a couple of months. But the fact that you guys are here wanting to listen to this and to comprehend what's going on and how you can defend yourself against it, because when all said and done, you are defending yourself. This is something that the system has changed so that you now automatically follow a process that's called the social contract, that's called the way it's done. You know, you become employed because everybody's employed. Do you ever ask why?
That's right.
You have to wonder why everybody is employed.
That's right.
And you don't have to be.
And one of the things that comes up, or has come up a lot over the years, is you know, specific situation, driver's license. You know, do you have a driver's license? Yes. Have you read the Motor Vehicle Act? Well, no. Well, why not? Don't you know what you're signing up for here? Like, and this comes into the questioning aspect of this. You know, if you feel you have an obligation to submit an application for registration, question it. You don't have to question it by asking people questions. You can question it by doing your own research. Look at the body of words that have been created to govern that contract, and figure out where your liabilities lie, where your freedoms lie within this. And I think I brought this up a couple of shows ago. When you look through the legislation, particularly the Canadian legislation, what we've found, for the most part, it's not always there, but for the most part, your obligation occurs at the first few paragraphs, and your remedy is in the last few paragraphs. Everything in between it is gobbledygook to get your mind turned into mush, so that you don't see your remedy at the end. But there's always remedy there if you look for it. And you have to look for it. Nobody's going to tell you where your remedy lies. There isn't anybody that's not their job. The lawyers, it's not the lawyer's job. The lawyer works for the court. His job is to make sure you lose and the court benefits. His job is to make sure that this information is hidden so that you don't find it. If you, historically, the lawyers were called counsel. Okay, a counsel is someone who gives you advice. If you try to treat the lawyer today as counsel, especially in a situation like that, they're just going to say, well, I'm not working for you. Here's your money back. I'm gone. I'm out of here. If you instruct the lawyer to ask questions in a certain way, they will say, no, I'm not doing that. Here's your money back. I'm not working for you. Who do we got coming in with the noise?
Actually, it's Patrick, but I don't know if he has a microphone properly yet.
Oh, I thought it was on mute. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you are. I recognize that voice. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing good. How about you, John?
Awesome. Things are looking swell over this area.
Oh, yeah?
Nice to hear from you again.
Very nice to hear from you. I was just Googling WFS, and I came across your name. And I thought, hey, I'd really like to hear that.
Well, we're brought up these shows. I'd like to introduce you to Carl. He's one of the old-time members, and he was one of the police officers who got disillusioned and left the force because he couldn't take the crap anymore. And we got together and we started doing these shows, not necessarily to rebuild the WFS, the World Freeman Society, but at least to re-examine the concepts in light of new information. And that's what we're doing on these shows. Love to hear I'd love to hear what's going on. If there's anything new, got anywhere. I do have.
Well, concerning WFS, you mean? We're going to be switching the public website to read only, and the going to be private site type things going dark. The public website was doing nothing but getting us into trouble.
Right. Well, I got some news for you. Heather Antucci Giraffe. She's one of the lawyers who didn't like the legal system and left the legal system. She was involved in international banking and finance for years and years and years. Very high level stuff, like had the Rothschilds on speed dial, that sort of stuff. She told us 3 days ago, Carl, that we were the closest as far as the financial stuff when we were dealing with the birth certificates in '96 and accessing the funds. We were the closest group ever.
Probably why we had so much opposition.
That's exactly why we had so much opposition. That's because we were within weeks of taking the system down, and that's why they slapped us down.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's all of the drama is still going on or whatever, and I figure instead of wasting time and resources trying to moderate or mediate, public dissent or whatever, like on our public forums, I'm just going to make it like an article news site type thing, and we're going to have the private forums just for members, and then we can focus our energy on that.
Right on. Yeah, we should have a look at the stuff that Heather's doing right now. The website i-uv.com is a good place to start. Basically, they've cracked the nut. They've solved most of the problems, and as far as the financial accessing the birth bond or the several bonds go, and essentially the only thing that's in the way right now is a small group of people who are manually intercepting the transactions and essentially stealing the funds.
Really?
Yep. The system, the computer system, the actual banking system recognizes our numbers, recognizes that we own the accounts. It's all basically done, and Heather's right now, well, she's working kind of off topic right now, trying to deal with a fellow named Randall Bean, who is in prison right now, trumped up charges. He got beat and a bunch of other stuff, and she's trying to get him out. But on the broader picture, basically we're digging to try to find who specifically is blocking this stuff. And we've got a couple of high-level names that we're looking at, and it appears that the only way they can stop this now is by monitoring every single transaction that's going through and manually blocking this. One of the things that came out, Randall, he set up a couple of certificates of deposit, and he also bought a $500,000 motorhome. And shortly after that transaction went through, the motorhome company was paid. Everything was fine. The bank for the motorhome company got a phone call saying that this is Randall Bean's representative, and we're demanding a reversal of these payments, which Randall Bean did not authorize. And so, you know, they're having to expose themselves in an extreme way now, and it's only a matter of time before we find these people and we stop it.
When did this happen? What's this, Randall Bean?
This has been ongoing over the last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah? So quite recent.
Yes, and he was driving the motorhome off the lot. Everything was done. Everything was perfect. And unmarked cars blocked him. A bunch of guys with guns got out, didn't identify themselves, dragged him out of the motorhome, beat him up, threw him in a car, and disappeared him. We know where he is now, and Heather's working on getting him released. So,
yeah, wow. Yeah, that's quite dramatic.
Yes, it's amazing. This stuff all started, well, it didn't start, but it was essentially culminated early 2013 when the One People Public Trust successfully foreclosed on the entire system, bringing it back into ownership of the people. And now we're actually taking action to regain control of it. It's an amazing thing to watch. There's still lots of questions. Don't just assume that you can just jump in and go and do this yet. Please leave it to the testers at this time.
Right.
Because these people know what they're doing. They've been involved in this for a very long time. They understand the verbiage. They understand the way things work. And they're working diligently and extremely hard to break this for everyone.
Well, you know, I have my own stuff on the go, so I'm not whatchamacallit, Paul Rogers, former global admin, keeps on asking me to volunteer with Ubuntu or whatever. And I'm like, well, I still got to deal with this. So.
Yeah. Yep. I've also, I hope you don't mind, I brought up your example that you did with your friend with the store about the chocolate bar. As an example that this is actually what we're talking about is actually real and true and can be done if you do it in exactly the right way. I would love to hear it from your perspective if you want to tell us that story.
I can't recall.
Really? When you went to your friend's store and bought a chocolate bar with a true bill, and they sent it in to the Receiver General and actually got their books balanced?
No, that wasn't me.
Wasn't you? I was sure it was you. No. Okay. I know what happened. I remember it distinctly.
Was it one of these Skype conversations that we were having with members?
Oh, goodness. It was so long ago, I don't remember who was involved in this specifically. I was sure it was you that did it, but that's okay. I know what happened, and that's happened a few times where the paperwork was done properly.
Right.
But
well, we have like... Oh, I'm trying to get the Skype conversations started up again with members and all of that for WFS.
All right.
So that we can continue having general meetings. But that sounds like something that might have been brought up by one of the members during one of our previous meetings.
Okay. Would you like to use this server? You're welcome.
Where is this located? Actually, I just downloaded the app, and this is the first time that I'm using Discord. So,
well, Discord was written by a bunch of young kid hackers down in California so that they could have a private and secure place to do their communication with gaming. But they've opened it up to everybody now. So it's not like Skype. It's not controlled. It's not recorded. It's built by people who appreciate their freedom and privacies.
Right. So they wrote the code. Are you guys hosting the app? Is that what you mean?
Well, they own the app. I mean, they own the Discord system. They own the Discord servers, and
Oh, okay.
we're using them because they're not controlled. They're not,
Yeah.
they're under this server is under my control, and well, my and Carl, we're both admins on the server. So basically, this is our living room. And if you'd like, I can build a WFS room, and we can share the server because it's already there. It exists. It's intended for this purpose.
Yeah. Well, I'm very interested in that. It's going
And
to
we
take.
can restrict it as well, John and Patrick. We can restrict it to WFS members only,
Yep.
If need be, so that if we have a list,
Yeah.
we just add the necessary people, and only those people get to talk to each other. So yeah, it's secure in that sense too.
Well, yeah. All of the members would be vetted before actually brought in or whatever, because we've been having problems with that recently, as in some people who bought like books like 5-10 years ago or something, and now they're like, hey, well, what happened to my membership? And now I've got to go through all these old accounts and try and verify everything, and they've moved like 20 times, and it's just really difficult. Especially there was one recently who actually wanted a refund, but they didn't have a PayPal account which they paid with. So I don't know exactly how that worked, if PayPal shut down their account or something like that. Yeah, but then they asked me for a bank transfer, and I'm like, I can't do that. That's money laundering, So,
yeah. For everybody, for everybody who's fairly new, I know we got a massive audience now. Patrick is the fellow who took over the WFS from me. What was that? 10 years ago, something like that.
7, I think. It was the Canadian section.
Yeah,
and then about 5 years ago, I became the global admin.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, Paul and everybody else are still there. It's just very difficult getting everybody to be on the same page and actually delegate these tasks or whatever. So instead of worrying about like the other admins or whatever, I'm just going to concentrate on the members in the private member website.
Right.
I actually haven't been able to get into it for a few years, Patrick. So I just
oh, really?
log into it and view as a guest. I gave up trying to
the public website. The public website, you mean?
Yeah, the WFS forum.
Okay.
I just log into it and view what's there right now. I don't bother logging in anymore.
Yeah, last week I switched it to read only. So and until I sorted out all of the members that are currently there or whatever, like in the private side, then at some point after that, I'll start giving out this link, like if we do set up a chat server here, and all of them would come directly from the private site instead of publishing it in public or on the public website or whatever, and then having a bunch of randoms come by.
All right. For those that are curious about this, the World Freeman Society was formed when we understood the power of a named society. And when we submit paperwork with the World Freeman Society letterhead, the rules change. The way they handle us, the way they deal with us completely changed, and it was a very, very useful tool at that time. It probably still is a very useful tool, but as we've realized from the work that Heather's done, we're a little past that now. And we each have our own individual tools that we can use that are even more effective in the long run, especially when we're just trying to throw a wrench in the works.
Right.
Anybody that's interested, over the next little while, it sounds like we're going to have a WFS room in under Sentiomantium, and but it will be restricted to WFS members. I'm sure there'll be contact information put in if anybody wants to get involved.
Yeah, and we'll probably organize public chats or whatever, because there are still members who want to like do podcasts and stuff like that. And I personally think that there's no such thing as bad PR or whatever, but we've got to get a handle on it.
Yep.
Right.
Well, it's controlling the people that come in and troll the process, and we just need to, as we've always done, deal with those kind of people. Some can be let in. If they're just questioning, then that's fine.
Right.
A lot of them don't come in to question, they come in to cause problems, and once they're identified, they just get booted.
Right.
And that's the way it should be.
And yeah, we just started doing that recently, monitoring people's logins, and it was a fiasco on the public website. There was one guy with like 13 accounts or whatever, and I didn't realize until it was too late that he was having conversations with himself and trying to entrap other users on the website or whatever. So that's one of the reasons why it's going private.
Yeah, it's much easier to keep control of that, certainly. And even with this server, with these shows, we welcome debate. If you think we're off track, if we think we're totally off topic, come in and let us know, and we'll actually discuss it with you. We'll have a debate over it. We love debates. I've debated. I don't know if Patrick remembers, but I've debated with CSIS agents and police officers and government agents and lawyers, and basically they left either completely unsatisfied or with enough knowledge that they couldn't continue doing what they're doing. And because what we're doing is right, what we're doing is accurate. Now, we don't have all the answers, certainly. I'm under no illusion to think that I have all the answers, but I have enough of the answers to know that where we're going with this is the right place to go. And I'm pretty sure most of the people in here today will completely agree with that. They can see that the system is broken, it needs to change, and the best way to change it is us. By us taking the reins, us taking the lead, and doing it like as I mentioned earlier, in an adult fashion, in a fashion that benefits everyone, not just ourselves.
Yeah. And I think what's really going unsaid in most of these conversations is that people need to be adults about it. We're not just playing around. It's not pretend or a joke or anything. It's, people are serious about it. And unless we can get serious participation or whatever, then we might as well just move on, right?
Yeah, and the serious participation Patrick is talking about is educating others. Learn for yourself, learn the truth of this, and let people know. Because it's by the numbers. When we have enough people, then there's no way they can continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah. I'm not saying go out and do something that you heard on the internet or whatever. It's raising awareness. That's the big thing.
That's right. If you're going to take action,
and that's why we wanted to start simple as well, John. With this show, with just a simple fact of questioning the processes that are going on around you and trying to comprehend what's happening, so you can start simple. I mean, the information that's come out this last couple of weeks from Heather is high level stuff, and we've got low level people who, let's face it, are hurting. I mean, how many of us are broke or near broke? We're not rich people, and we need to live. We need to survive, and unfortunately, the system is designed around money and the acquisition of money and the spending of money. That's what it's all about. And unfortunately, this has got a lot of people excited because they feel that they can get what they've been told is theirs. There are questions as to that, the actual legitimacy of that. But that being aside, there are people jumping into this process that don't have the background knowledge to be able to defend themselves when they're challenged. And they will be challenged because this, like I say, is high-level stuff. These accounts are typically between central banks. This is not your local ATM down at the local mall you're drawing money out of here. Right. So yeah, there is a certain amount of understanding that's required and comprehension of the process for you to carry it out. And as John spoke of 10 minutes ago, let the people who have the knowledge and are going through the process do it. Right. If you feel that you are knowledgeable and you're one of those people, then who am I to stop you? I just urge caution, and those who have little knowledge should stay well away, please, just for your own sake at the moment, because these people are not messing around. You know, when people get access to this stuff, they have accidents.
Oh, most definitely. And if you are one of those who believe or who feel they have sufficient knowledge to do this, the first thing you need to do is question that. Is that actually accurate? Go talk to other people. I mean, any musician will tell you the best way to get better is to play with musicians that are better than you are. So, and that applies with anything. It doesn't matter what you're learning. So if you're to the point where you think you have sufficient knowledge to deal with this, before you actually jump in and poke the bear, go talk to people who are doing it on a daily basis and ask them questions and run your processes by them. Get some advice from those folks, because they're those folks are the ones that are actually doing it. They're at the point where you want to be at. So, because there's a lot of deception within this system. There's a lot of little, just niggly little details that if you don't get them just right, you're going to lose. And be very, very careful with that. So I don't want to discount anyone's confidence, but please, before you actually take action, run it past a few people and get some concept or get some suggestions. Look at all of the ways it could go wrong and deal with that going wrong. One of the things that I taught when I was teaching with the World Freeman Society was the very first letter. You go through the concepts of what you're dealing with, and you pick out the points that they are going to come back at you with and destroy those points before they even bring them up. Take away their toys before they get a chance to even play with them. And the only way to do that is to know what their toys are, know what they're going to do. And one of the best ways to do that is to talk to people that have already been through it. And, what did they use against you? What came up that you didn't see at the beginning? And the more we share this kind of information, the faster we're going to be able to deal with this.
Right. And I think a good motto would be one step at a time. Try to learn as much as you can about what's around you to begin with. Yep. And then you can move onward and upward.
Yep. Carl, if you don't mind, I think you've read my open letter that I just posted. I'd like to actually verbalize it, put it into the energetic in a more powerful way, particularly with the folks in the group here. If everybody can focus on this, and if you agree with it, certainly pass it along. You can find this letter on Facebook. You find it on my YouTube channel. There's a number of different places you can locate it. But I would like to read this out, and this is for the folks who are tasked by the supposed controllers to actually get in the way.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, John, at all. Of course, if it's tools that we want to give to people, then yeah, let's give them something. I mean, I hate the word templates. I hate to point people to templates because they can get people in trouble. They don't quite comprehend what it is that the template is saying. So if we can go through and try and explain that process, then it gives them something to work with. But of course, we're back to the language again. Everything is about the language. And we don't speak the same language as the government and the lawyers. They speak legalese and we speak English, French, Dutch, whatever, but it's not the same language. And that's what we need to get people's mind to switch between, because, well, your YouTube video still applies. What you don't know will get you into trouble.
Oh, most definitely. And I wouldn't call this a template. I wouldn't really even call it a tool. This is more of a plea. And this is an open letter to the ground level individuals that are tasked to monitor and report to their superiors the goings on in rooms of discussions such as these ones found here. Please consider the message herein and how it will impact you, your family, your children, and your grandchildren, not to mention all the people that are currently considered disenfranchised. The discussions of the Treasury Direct Accounts, as well as prior discussions and implementations of these concepts, are not limited to our small group. They apply to you as well. Every man, woman, and child on this planet are included in these implementations. Even you, who are actively working to block and delay the people's access to their birthright, have a right to a life free of unnecessary and overly restrictive controls. By doing what you do to hinder our efforts to unlock this process, you're actually actively participating in harming the global population, ensuring that the manufactured system of lack, starvation, homelessness, war, greed, crime by necessity, and rampant social inequality persist and grow. But ask yourself, for what? Do you or your children actually benefit from these things? What kind of life could you and your children have if your needs were met and you and they had the freedom to pursue the passions of the heart? I, for one of many, have been chasing this dream for over 15 years, and in that time, I and other researchers have found that what we first postulated as a mere concept, and others labeled a pipe dream, is in fact absolutely true and factual. We know the accounts exist. We know how to access them for the benefit of all, you included. Why would you be working to block this? What would you do if you had total and unfettered access to essentially unlimited funds? Would you go crazy and buy everything you can see? That's what the folks pulling your strings do. And we can see where that got the world. Or would you put your efforts and visions into creating a world where everyone had what they needed and could pursue without financial restrictions their passions, talents, and dreams? Please consider the true effect of your acting on behalf of a small group of undeniably insane, criminally minded, and emotionally deficient sociopaths. Do you really think that if this small group actually gets what it wants, that you're not going to be simply discarded once your usefulness is depleted? History shows this is exactly what will happen. So I put to you, please, stop working for those that seek death, destruction, inequality, division, and lack, and put your efforts into generating a better system where all have the freedom to exist without fear or struggle. If you choose not to assist us, that's okay too. What you're doing is only making us stronger, showing the areas where we need more safeguards, and helping us perfect our cleanup efforts. It's mathematically inevitable that we will succeed. By trying to block us, you're accomplishing only a slight delay, but more importantly, delaying you and your children's access to the ability to live well. All for the benefit of a few that really don't care if you live or die. And with that, this is I was saying before about the low-level troops. Most of these guys don't know what they're doing. They're following a script. They have a job. They think they have to do it. Some of them believe they're doing the good thing, but they're not thinking it through. And if they thought it through and realized exactly what they were doing, they wouldn't do it anymore. So when we say question everything, when you question the people at the desks, do so in such a manner so that not to annoy them, not to make them angry, but to open their eyes so that they can see what they're doing. And they begin to question, and they question their superiors. And hopefully they'll take on the way you question them, take that to their superiors. Their superiors will begin to question what they're doing, and so on and so on. And until we get up to the last, 9 families, and there's 4 people in each of these 9 families driving the bus, whatever the numbers are, and they simply don't have any control anymore, because anytime they tell one of their minions to do something, the minion goes, well, why? Why would I do that? That doesn't benefit anybody except you. And when we get to that point, we win, period, hands down. I mean, it's going to be a process. It's going to take us a while, I'm sure. I'd love to see it happen next week, but I just can't see it getting that fast. It would be nice.
Me neither. Me neither. No, I agree with you on that whole concept. I mean, even how you go about doing it. See, the big talking point really is money and vaccinations and anything that the authorities and the system wants to impose on you that you as a people, whether you are truly knowledgeable or, you know, just kind of waking up to this process, vaccines is one that really bugs a lot of people, because I think a lot more people now are aware that there is damage being caused by these things. Now, I posted probably in the first show a letter, and you can find it on the internet. It's called the Physician's Vaccination Warranty Letter. And anybody that has had any school teacher, school nurse, pediatric nurse, any kind of medical practitioner come to them and tell them that they are obligated, that they must submit and have this vaccination, should give this warranty letter to that practitioner, whoever it might be. In essence, what it is a letter to state, yes, I am a registered nurse, blah, blah, whatever. Here's my qualifications. Here is the vaccination I'm attempting to give. Here are the contraindications and the ingredients of that vaccination. And it is my considered opinion as an expert that everything's okay. However, if there should be a problem, I will accept full liability.
That's right.
Nobody has ever signed that letter. And the good thing about it is, because you said, well, I will accept it if you, the professional, you, the expert, will guarantee me by accepting liability that it's okay for my child. Because if it isn't, I'm coming to you because you accepted the liability.
Yep. Conditional
and
acceptance.
You can walk away.
Yeah,
that's it. Conditional acceptance.
Conditional acceptance. It gives you a lawful excuse to say no. Glowing brought up an interesting question. This came up a number of times, and she says they won't question. This is our previous about talking to the low-level folks, saying they won't question. No one questions anything when they fear losing an income, and the income is the only way they survive in this world they were raised in. And yes, totally, I understand that to be true, but what we're looking at now is that no one needs an income. If we can crack this nut, you won't need to have a job. You won't need to go make money. Your needs will be covered. And when they realize that, when they realize they're blocking that, that's going to be a major step forward in getting these people on side. I mean, I don't really want to even use the term on sides, because we're all in this together. And, you know, the folks who have everything, you know, the trillionaires in this world, they're in the position where we want to get to, where they just don't have to worry about this stuff. But they don't want anybody else there, because they have this thing in their head that says that I'm the only one entitled to do this. Where if they let it happen, nothing for them is going to change. Their lifestyle is going to be the same as it ever was. The only thing that's really going to change is that everybody else will have that lifestyle as well and be able to access that lifestyle. If they choose to go buy 40 Ferraris and 6 yachts, fill your boots, do it. But you'll soon realize that that's a complete waste of time. And it won't be more, I don't think it'll be more than 2 generations before all of that stupidity goes away and people actually realize all you got to do is live, put your energies into making things awesome. And when everybody does that, think of the world that we can live in. It would be an amazing place. And that's what I'm working for. I want to live in an amazing place. I want to live in a place where everybody has what they need, so they don't have to steal stuff to eat. They don't have to steal stuff to feed an addiction. They don't have to hurt people because they think they don't have. And that's, you know, when you really break it down, 99% of the criminal behavior is because people feel this sense of lack. Take away the lack, the criminal behavior goes away. Yes, there will be some who do it because they think it's fun. And those are the folks, they're mentally ill. They've got issues that they need to work through. But again, it's still a manufactured system. If you have what you need, if you're not hurting for anything, you're going to be nice to people. You're going to want friends. You're going to want to share your stuff. And pretty much everybody in the room, as well as most of the people that I talk to, the only reason why they don't share their stuff is because they think they have to have, because of this manufactured system of lack. And that's what we're trying to get rid of, is this concept of lack. You know, all of the stuff the World Freedmen Society has done, all of the legal stuff, all of this points to that. Changing the system so people have what they need and they can have the freedom to live as they choose to live, provided they follow the 3 simple rules. Do no harm, do no damage, and use no fraud in contracts, which I'm pretty sure everybody will be happy with.
Amen.
Exactly. I mean, this is what Patrick's and I've been working on this. Carl's been working with this. We've had like hundreds and hundreds of members within the World Freedmen Society who are actively pursuing that specific goal. And that's the whole point of the show. That's the whole point of us even bringing this stuff up, is to show people they don't have to live that way. There is a better way to live. There's there's a better way for them to treat their neighbors. I mean, we used to have a nuclear family where everybody in the family, they'd sit down for dinner, they'd talk about their day. It was a cohesive unit. It was a very difficult thing to break. Now we don't have this cohesive family, this nuclear family anymore. We need to get back to that. But more than that, we need to have a nuclear community. You need to get to know your neighbors. You need to understand their fears, their desires. You need to share with your neighbors. And we do this. We see this during disaster times. There are certainly some situations where in a disaster, people will try to take advantage. But most people, the power goes out for 4 days. Most people will get together and share, and they will support one another. We saw this during the ice storms in Quebec several years ago, where it didn't matter if you were an Anglophone or a Francophone. It didn't matter whether you were white. It didn't matter. If you were in trouble, people came and helped. You could go to your neighbor, knock on the door, and go, "Oh, I'm really cold. Do you have a fire? Can I come in and help? Or can I come in?" And yeah, come on in. Well, you're hungry? Here's some soup. People want to treat people well. But at this time, it takes some sort of a disaster to do that. We need to get past the concept of disaster and just do it all the time.
I think I agree. Again, John, I agree. I mean, I think we're preaching to the, in many cases, in the group here, we're preaching to the choir. A lot of them are already converted, of course, but we're just looking for the best ways to do this. How can we achieve this? And I suppose there are many models as to how it can play out in the future.
Yeah, we are preaching to the choir to some extent, particularly the folks in the room. I recognize most of these names, and I've talked to pretty much most of these people at some point. And yeah, they're all on the same page. But this is also going out publicly. This is live on YouTube. It's going to be up for archive. There's going to be folks who have never heard of this stuff before watching these shows. So this is why I'm bringing this up. And
I don't doubt that.
Lots of stern warnings. Yeah. And I think I brought that up before, Andrea, that one of the things that really bugs my butt is the ability for the police to have this discretion. Well, I'm not going to charge you this time. Bullshit. If it's a law, charge me. You're not the judge. You don't get that decision. And if it's a law, it's a law. As simple as that. There's no discretion involved. So I don't know. That just drives me nuts when that concept comes up. But yeah. Well, okay.
What drove me nuts as a serving officer as well, John, was actively being the judge, the jury, and the executioner all in one go. Because when you get a ticket, that's what you are. You've witnessed what you believe or perceive to be an offence under the statute codes. and you've issued a ticket, so you've already found them guilty, and you've gone straight on to the punishment phase, which is, here, pay this money.
That's right.
And if you don't like it, then go to court, you know, and probably cost you $300 to go to court when the ticket might be $150. People do the math, and that's why they pay the tickets.
Yeah.
But one of the things that would, I mean, I've pointed out before now, and something that I would love to be able to do, but I know it just won't happen because it doesn't happen all in one go. We don't get enough people with the information to be able to do it. But pretty much everybody that gets a ticket within a month period, go not guilty, send it back not guilty.
Yep. And you know,
because if there were that many that did that, it would collapse the system. It would collapse the court system in that district, because they have to be able to find court dates for all of these. And then you get into the state of actually going to court within, the hell's the phrase they use in Canada? In essence, what they want to do is you get to court within a year. If it's beyond a year, then you're past the point of a speedy trial, a speedy process.
Yeah.
And at that point, you can have that ticket expunged.
And this brings back the concept of numbers. And Clive brought that up too, sort of in an offhand way. He said people in the UK have been arrested for feeding to people who have been forced to live on the streets. It's not just the UK, buddy. It's that they've done it in the States too. But that they can only do that if it's only a handful of people doing that. If they had 2/3 of the city making sure that the homeless had food to eat, how would they deal with it? How would they stop that? If, you know, every time you got 3 cops who are, you know, or 5 cops who are tasked to control this thing, and every time they go out, they're dealing with 2,000 people feeding the homeless, what are they going to do about it? They can't stop that. Now, if you want to get around that, if it's a small group and you want to get around that, instead of going and giving them a sandwich, take them out to lunch. Take them to a restaurant and buy them a meal. I mean, that's, you can't, you know, hey, I was just talking to this guy, I'm going for lunch. I say, hey, come on, I'll buy you lunch. Nobody can fault you for that. Nobody can give you a ticket or charge you with any offense for that. The argument they used when people are going out to feed the homeless is the health regulations. Because most of these people, they don't have the health certification, they can't guarantee their products are safe and all of this sort of crap. And that's the garbage that they use to enforce this. Not that you're feeding the homeless, but that you're giving people uncertified foodstuffs. So to get around that, buy them a hamburger. I mean, think about how you can do this, and you know, and make it work.
They're also using those same arguments for lemonade stands and stuff like that.
That's right. And you know, like the kids' lemonades, I had a lemonade stand when I was a kid. Of course, I lived out in the country 10 miles from town, and we had like one customer, and that was my dad. But I did it anyway. I did it too. And they used to have lemonade stands in town. And nobody complained. Nobody bothered. Nobody got sick from the lemonade. There's such a fearful a bend on the community these days that anytime you see somebody trying to do something nice, the first thing that goes through most people's heads is, what are they trying to get away with? You know, are they going to poison your dog? Are they going to poison your kids? Rather than think, wow, this guy's trying to do something really nice. This is kind of thinking we need to get past, but that also does happen.
Well, that's what I was bringing. Yeah, I was bringing that up earlier, though, John. That's exactly what they've done to bring us to this point where everything is fear-based, and that we're being attacked on every front under the guise of protectionism. You know, even to the extent of the terrorist situation. 9/11 occurs. Whether you believe it was an inside job or not, it doesn't really matter. You have to question the fact that 2 months later, they brought 750-page worth of Patriot Act out within 2 months. You know, I mean, less than that, I believe. I mean, the damn thing ended up being so large that it had to have been already in existence. They already had this legislation prepared. All they needed was the event to bring it out. And that's the way it works, the Hegelian dialect, the problem, the reaction, the solution.
Yep.
And it's even, I mean, that's huge. But now we're talking about little things. Now we're talking about feeding people on the street. You're not allowed to feed them because you might poison them. What kind of thinking is that? I get a little animated on occasion for the simple reason that we as a society, as a people, we don't question this. We don't fight this. There are a few that do. So this is not a blanket thing. So anybody who is listening, who is doing this and is fighting back, then good on you. But you're not the norm, not yet. And that's what we want to bring about. We want to make a change in the way people think. And that when a cop approaches you, when any kind of authority approaches you, whatever the circumstance is, you have to understand that particular situation. For instance, if you're driving a vehicle, there are certain things that you have to abide by because you're driving. If you're on the street and a cop approaches you and you don't want to talk to him, unless he has a damn good reason to approach you as a peace officer for reasons of safety or public order, then you don't have to speak to him. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Nope.
And he can do whatever the hell you want, but it's not. It's just there are a whole, just a whole field of different way of thinking that we have to change into to make the society change as well. And Glowing, she made a comment earlier on about it's all about this me thing. Yes, that's what our society has been turned into. I believe, and I know a lot in this channel believe, that humans, people are inherently good. Their situation has created that me thing, especially the profoundly poor, because they find it difficult to do absolutely anything because money is required and they don't have it. So they have no recourse but to turn to crime. Having the money available to us as much as we need to get those resources would remove that. So the me stuff technically should go away because, and I don't think anybody disagrees, but we are inherently good. We will help each other in whatever way we can. So there's a change in our thinking that has to take place. There is a change of our comprehension of what's being done to us that has to take place. And and if we can spread it from this channel and many other channels, the WFS and all the others that are out there, something that we attempted to do many years ago and were blocked and constantly blocked and trolled. Fortunately, these days, the trolls are in the minority. When we started this process, John and Patrick and myself and others, it was the majority. We were the minority in these channels. Now it's the other way round. And that, to me, that's wonderful. I mean, my heart screams for that. And if people can just lose the fear and gain the comprehension of what's needed and spread that, the more people do it. And Ireland right now is a wonderful example of where that's happening. Anne will, I'm sure, back me up on that one. Vin from TNS Radio, if anybody recognizes that, I'm hoping to get Vin on the show so that we can talk about what he's been doing over the years since he and I interacted in 2009, 2010, 2011, going at it. And it's big. The community and the people of Ireland coming together, because what happened, I left England, in fact, because I felt and knew what was happening to society in England. It took 10 years to get to a certain stage. It was a slow-ish process. I moved to Canada thinking, oh, it's a nice, freer country, a lot more relaxed, no rat race. What happened in England over 10 years took 2.5 years to happen in Canada. And that's what they're trying to do now in Ireland with all this new EU stuff and the regulations and the tighter control. fortunately, the people are standing up and standing their ground and resisting what's being done.
Yeah,
if it's a good thing, then by all means we should support it, but it's not. It's stuff that's done in the guise of protectionism of the people, and it's not. It's a control of the people. It's a surveillance of the people, and inevitably it will be the removal of cash and a complete RFID existence. And if that's what you want, then this isn't the right channel for you. But if you don't want that, then please join with us and just learn as much as you can, as fast as you can, and spread the word. John,
yeah,
Patrick,
Peter,
whoever.
Yeah, Peter brought up an interesting point. I think I've touched on this a couple of times already in over the shows, and it says, why can't we tell them, the governments, what to spend their money on? Like no bombs, no poison, etc. You can, but you need to do it in the right way. And you need to do it in such a way that it generates a contract, because that's all they understand. And you can't just go to a politician and say, hey, can we make an agreement to do it this way? And they'll go, yeah, and then do whatever they want. That's what politicians do. But if it's on paper, if they have a contract, an enforceable contract, then they either are going to not deal with you in any way, shape, or form. They're not even going to acknowledge you exist, or they will be held to that contract. And a number of the WFS members have done this for taxes. They get a thing, say, you got to pay taxes. Okay, sure, I'd be happy to pay your taxes, provided you give me evidence under oath and penalty of perjury that none of the money goes to genocide and killing people and government and toppling governments and, you know, a whole list of things that we know they do that you do not want to have happen, because an adult response is to make sure you know where your money's being spent. If you do the process,
and that's for the people as well that pay tax. This isn't about the people who, through their own knowledge, understand or comprehend that they're not even part of the tax system, so they don't need to pay it.
That's right.
This is what John's referring to, is literally for the people who are in and registered and so on to pay taxes. Then, yeah, okay. Let's talk about this contract. Where's my money going? Sorry, carry on, John.
Yep, that's right. And it doesn't matter whether you're signing for a corporation, if it's corporate taxes, if you've got a $20 million business, it doesn't matter. It's the responsible thing to do to ensure that you are not participating in criminal activity by your government. So question it. You know, I'd be happy to remit this tax information and support your efforts. However, your efforts seem to be criminal activities. I see activity of this, and I do not support that. I will not allow my money to go that way. So in order for me to, in good conscience, continue to support you, I need written, sworn assurances that these things do not occur. And you're not going to get it. GST, a fella, it's a little bit different process, but a friend of mine from Prince Rupert, who had a restaurant up there, was getting nickel and dimed by GST. It was killing his business. And we formulated a letter saying we'd be happy to collect this money and do your work for you, but it's costing us a tremendous amount of money to do this. It's a lot of time, there's a lot of paperwork. So from this point on, we are required to bill you X amount of dollars for every piece of paper and every bit of GST that collected, and they got a letter back and says, don't collect GST anymore. The folks who have sent the letter in for their taxes, you know, I'd be happy to pay this, provided it doesn't go to killing people and causing problems in the world. Basically, they just never heard from them again. They didn't bother even sending them a letter back. It just ended, and there was no questions. Now, for like a $20 million business, chances are you're going to have a little more to do than that, because you've got a whole lot of people's livelihoods involved in this. But for an individual who's making $25,000, $30,000 a year, the taxes are painful. They hurt. By all means, what's the worst thing that can happen? They're going to say, well, screw you, you're paying it anyway. you haven't lost anything. But they can't put you in jail for it. You want assurances that you're not paying for criminal activity. That's all. And that's pretty easy to defend, even for anybody who's been around this or who hasn't been around this for any length of time. So that's, one thing you can do. There's lots of things you can do without having a vast quantity of knowledge. And it all comes down to questions. Now, the conditional acceptance, we bring this up a lot because it is an extremely powerful tool. And it's also a good way to keep yourself from getting in trouble. Because if they go, well, he refused to pay taxes. You could say, no, I didn't refuse to pay taxes. It's right here in writing. I'm totally happy to pay taxes. You walk out with clean hands. It puts the onus on the individual creating the obligation to prove his obligation. Or prove something prove his obligation is honest and honorable, and however you want to formulate the document. But keep in mind, you want to stay in honor. You want to stay with clean hands, so that you can, if it does come down to that, you can say, "Look, I didn't refuse to do this. I totally agreed to do this. They refused to allow me to do it, and it's their problem, not yours." Extremely powerful tool. But you got to do the paperwork right. You have to understand the administrative process. You have to understand a paper trail. Because, half of their tools or one of their tricks is I didn't even see it. I didn't get it. So you have to be able to prove they did get it. And if you can have a bulletproof paper trail and stay in honor, you can pretty much get away, or not get away, but you can pretty much affect a dramatic amount of change within your own specific system. You're not going to do this globally. You're not going to do this overall until we get, 1 million people doing this. And then it's going to change for everybody. But we need to get as many people working with these tools, working with these types of systems, making the questions, asking the questions, requiring these answers, requiring people who make claims to take responsibility for their claims over and over and over again in a really big way. Then we can actually start moving the system ahead, because with a small group, they just ignore it. I don't care, whatever. Sometimes they'll just let it happen. If 60 people in this country of 40 million some odd, just say, we're not paying taxes because it's all criminal activity, prove it's not, they're just going to say, fine, don't pay taxes, because it's not going to hurt them at all. If you make a big fuss over it, then they're going to come and smack you and probably charge you with stuff. But for the most part, they'll just say, go away, just go away. But if 10 million of the 40 million do it, they can't just let it happen. They can't, they're going to have to let it happen. They don't really have a choice, but it's going to have a much greater effect than if it's just a small group. And
well, DTax Canada is a website that got hit really hard because they were telling people exactly how to actually file. These were the people that were registered to pay taxes, and they told people exactly how to file their tax returns, which left them a zero balance, zero owing. They got hit hard because that's what they did. So, part of the process that we're referring to, John, is how do we remove ourselves bit by bit from, from the contracts that we end up making with the system without our knowledge. One of the simplest ones that most people don't seem to realize is voter registration. Now, that happens at taxation time in Canada, as I believe, because it's written on the form. Do you want to be on the voters register? And it's a tick box item. Being on the voters register means that you're part of the political process. So the democracy that we're all part of, if you happen to be on that voters register as a representative government, they will automatically assume and presume that you are a part of that acceptance process, so that once they are elected and become a representative, you are automatically agreeing to that. So get off the voters register. stop registering for things, ask questions if you have to register certain things. I mean, a motor vehicle is typical. You have a $20,000 car, the last thing you want to be driving in the street and have a cop impound it, because it's pretty hard to get it back. You don't want to have to keep doing that with a $20,000 car. So there are certain things and times when you pick your battles, you know, but there are so many different things that, I mean, schools, for instance, children, registering the children to go to school. Yes, it's difficult because nowadays you need both parents to work so that you can actually afford to live. But simply registering your child in a school gives the school and the authorities, the government, I'm saying authority, for them to do vaccinations, to do all these things, teach them shit, Common Core and what have you, which, I mean, English, math, I have no idea how anybody is that kind of training. But anyway, that stuff is taught, and you simply register them. You're giving them permission. You're ready. I mean, it happens before that, but there are so many areas that were tricked into participating. And I'm going to go back over this, John, because this is something long ago as far as children are concerned. If you recall, I mentioned was in a bit of a fight with CAS in Canada over my grandson. My son and his estranged girlfriend had been separated for probably 3.5 years. So my grandchild was 3.5 at the time, and because the girlfriend wasn't particularly well adjusted and was pretty much a welfare chick, it got to the point where CAS were involved and they would take the child, my grandchild, into care. There were several things that occurred. One of them I hadn't realized the fact, but my grandson was never registered. He didn't have a birth certificate. And I didn't know that at the very beginning. It was only later on that I found out. But I also found out that during the process, what the court system did, what the CAS and the lawyers did, was to trick both my son and the girlfriend into signing a document that basically said that my grandson, or their son, was in need of protection. And the reason they did that was because he wasn't part of their system. He didn't have a birth certificate. And they couldn't just take him. And John, you've pointed out something that happened exactly the same way to somebody that you know, with a group of children that were taken away, and one was returned because he did. But the system, the lawyers and the system, tricked both my son and his ex-girlfriend, the mother, into signing a document that gave them the legal right at that point to then take control of the situation, even though previously they had no authority. And secondly, there was a point where I was having a discussion with a children's aid services lawyer who at that very moment in time had just been promoted to become a judge. And she was actually a friend of the family, and she was helping us out. And of course, my son got a bit irate and animated because of what was happening to his son. And he made the statement that, you know, he's my son. You know, I have the right to do with him and take care of him the way I want. And I turned around to him and I said, actually, you're wrong there. He's not your son. You don't have the right to do anything. The state does. And this CAS lawyer / now judge looked at me like I'd just shot her. And her response was, how did you know that? And that was clarification for me. I mean, this was coming from a judge and a CAS lawyer who knew the system. So these are the little tricks that they use. The registration process has already handed title to your child to the system. And most of you people out there don't know that. You don't get that. And it's just these little things that we want to be able to help you understand, to comprehend, so that you can defend against what's happening. And when you stand up and say, these are my rights, I have rights to do this, the Constitution tells me that I can do this, and I'm protected. Wrong. You don't seem to understand that the Constitution and all of these other protections, you are not signatories to them. They don't protect you. You have your own inherent rights. What you have been given is privileges as a person. So a big learning process, hopefully something that you want to get involved with to figure out what's been done, why we're in this situation, and to carry on to free ourselves from what's been done, because that's what we've got to do. We've got to free ourselves. We're not free now. I had several meetings several years ago. And one of my first comments to all of the attendees was, I'm sorry to say this, but you're all slaves. And several of them obviously knew where I was coming. They didn't really worry about it quite so much. But this one particular one was a friend of my sister's that had attended the meeting. She was an ex-government worker. She went ballistic. She said, I'm not a slave. I've never been a slave. Blah, blah, blah. She came out with all of this stuff, absolutely could not comprehend what I was talking about. And in fact, left in the end. She couldn't deal with what it was that I was bringing, the information that I was bringing to the fore. So unfortunately, you guys, when you get and you reveal this, you're going to have similar responses, I guess.
Yes,
so,
cognitive dissonance.
This is a learning.
Cognitive dissonance is most definitely an aspect that you'll be dealing with. You just see that. What do they call it? The fluoride stare. You get it's the eyes glaze over, and you, at that point you've lost your audience. So just stop. Don't try to beat him anymore.
Yeah.
It came up a number of times in the chat about voting, and what I did personally was I told them that voting is supposed to be a choice. However, we actually don't have a choice when on a ballot. And I would be happy to participate in your system as soon as you put none of the above on the ballot, because I don't like any of these people and I'm not voting for any of them. And at that point, they stopped bugging me to vote. They just stopped. I haven't heard from them in years and years and years. They haven't even sent me a notice or anything. I did basically the same thing with the census. They're saying, oh, you're obligated to do the census. The census guy came to my door and I says, look, I'll just make it easy for you. There are no legal persons living in this house or residing in this household. And he went, thank you, and walked away. And it was it. That was
I did
over.
the same thing as well, John. But the other thing, I'm in a fortunate position to some extent, because I asked the census guy when they came to the door, why must I fill this form in? And the stock answer was, well, every citizen of Canada must fill the form. So, well, I said, well, let me stop you there, because I'm not a citizen of Canada. See ya.
Yep.
Actually, I didn't finish the story. Anybody who was battle with the CAS and so on, I won. We now have custody of my grandson. So you can win.
Yep. Oftentimes it's a difficult struggle, but it's getting a lot easier than it used to be. People, there's more knowledge. People understand their position better. And the so-called controllers know that when certain things come up in conversation, just stop, because you're not going to win. There's no way they're going to get past that, because we're getting more clever in this, and we're asking the right questions, and we're asking the questions that expose the fraud, expose the lies, expose the deceptions. And this is the main thing. So I think, Carl, the last 20 minutes, let's open it up see if we can take some questions. If there's anybody that wants to bring something up or ask a question, please do so. There's lots of people in the room, and we don't have any way for you to put your hand up, so we'd have virtually no control. So please govern yourselves accordingly, and try not to talk over each other if you can. I know it's kind of difficult, but if you think about old CB radios where, you know, you had to wait for the guy to stop talking before you keyed up your own mic, that will work well. So if there's anybody who wants to come in, ask a question, complain, throw shit, I don't care. Come on in. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to say over, Clive. That's fine.
That's coming from an ex-military man.
Yeah, I have a little question.
Certainly.
Right, I've got income tax on my to-do list, but I want to set them up beforehand. So I'm going to use the method that you use, a conditional acceptance. And then when the next brown paper envelopes hits my floor, I shall return it back to them with addressee not recognized, return to sender. How do you think that'll go down?
It'll probably slap you really hard. I don't know in Malta how that works, but in Canada, we fill out a form called a TD1, and that is the contract to pay tax. If you haven't filled out a TD1, then you can embark on the process going, look, you're claiming I'm obligated to fill out this TD1 form, which I recognize as a contract, such and such, and then I'd be happy to do so provided you swear that these things don't occur, because you're not under contract. If you are under contract, you need to disable that contract first before you can say no, because otherwise you're in breach of contract.
Actually, I have another aspect to that as well, John. Clive, am I correct in thinking that you might be receiving a pension?
I am receiving 2 pensions, one for me, two for me, and one for the wife.
Yeah, if you make a big fuss over that, you'll probably lose your pensions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is,
unfortunately, you're actually receiving it from the state. So, the old saying, "Render unto Caesar which belongs to Caesar," in your particular circumstance, really does ring true. So you're actually receiving a benefit, a pension of some sort, a payment from the government. So in that case, tax really is owed, much as that might be an annoyance to people. And you could certainly question, because you're a PAYE as well, so the thing's taken out at source. You can't even, worry about filling in a form and then not paying it. It's taken out before you receive the pension. So that's a difficult process for you to follow.
Yeah, Clive, you're in a very similar situation that Earl is in, is where you are under contract. You are to some extent dependent on the system. So unless you're prepared to lose all of that, I would recommend probably not going that route.
Okay. This TD1, is that a self-assessment form?
Well, the TD1 is when you enter into an employment agreement, one of the things the employer will give you the TD1, which is your declaration of name, address, how much you want them to take out. If you want them to take out an extra $20 every month of taxes, it's the contract to allow them to tax you. And I am not under PAYE, by the way. Okay.
Is that not part? I thought that was part of.
No, I left the UK. I was under PAYE in the UK, but when we moved to Malta, I elected to have my income tax done here rather than the UK because it's cheaper.
Right. Now, I suppose there would be recourse. Research what you're getting. Is it actually income by definition? And you may, I'm not saying it will work, but it may get you a step closer without actually having, losing your pension, because I'm sure that would hurt dramatically. So I don't want to offer any advice that's going to jeopardize your livelihood at this point, unless you're prepared to lose it. But if it's not by definition income, you can make that argument and say, look, this money is not income, this is pension. And by pension, it's not taxable or look through the words, look through the legislation, look through the words, the definitions of the words. You may find remedy there. But using the process where you just, you say, look, I'd happy to pay your taxes if it's not going to happen, chances are they're just going to cancel your pension and be done with you. So. Yeah.
The state pension is, no, not the state pension. I have an occupational pension, which is a private one. So it's nothing to do with government.
Yeah. So
and that's the biggest one.
Peter says tax on income would only be income. Well, income is a very specific thing, and it deals with commerce. If you are a plumber and you go to someone's house and you fix their sink, it takes you 3 hours and they pay you $90. You are being compensated for your time. It's compensation, not income. If you are an investor and you invest $1,000 and you get a return of $500, that $500 return is income. Because you didn't...
The other way I've looked at it, John, is that income, to make it simple, has always, in my view, been, if you look at it as profit on anything that's done, so it's unearned or it's not an exchange, it's a profit.
Yep.
That is what they're trying to tax you on.
Yep.
So to explain why your wages are taxable and taxable 100% is because that wage is profit to the company, not to you, to the company. It's all profit, which is why they can pay you. So, and that's also why you get taxed on 100% of your income, your earnings, because it was the company's profit that allowed them to pay you.
That's sneaky.
Yes, yep. It's very sneaky.
Because I was going to use that. I won't use it now. Now I understand now. Thanks, mate. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's very, very sneaky. If you're working for someone else, if you're under, I can't remember which one it is, because there's a contract for employment and a contract for hire. I think if you're in a contract for employment, then you go under the rules that the company works on. And you are a member of that company and their rules apply. If you're under a contract for hire, you are a private contractor. And different rules apply at that point. And that's why right now I don't work for a company. I work for, I perform services for others, and I get compensation for my efforts, for my time. So it's not income, it's compensation. Now, it's all on a sliding scale. If you can't pay, you don't pay. If you can pay extra, awesome. It's totally up to you guys. I'd prefer not to have to do this, but I got bills to pay and I got, I got to eat, feed the dog. So I'm kind of stuck in this. So I need to use that system in my best advantage and the best advantage for all of my clients that I work with. I'm not going to support the criminal organization. And I told them that to their face. I says, I will not support criminal activity. And what you're doing is harming people. It is criminal by definition. So I'm not going to support you. And they have so far left me alone. I haven't heard back. They don't send me letters. I'm not threatened or anything. So there is a way to do it. It's not easy. Trust me. It's very difficult. You do have to give up a lot of stuff. You don't have a social net to fall back on in case things crash and burn. But you can build your own social net, which I, fortunately, through these shows and the work that I've done with Danny and Lisa and all of those awesome people out there that are with those groups, those are my social net. And when I'm in dire straits and I know it's going to be a big issue, I know I can count on those people. And this is why we need to cultivate our nuclear community. not just the nuclear family, but the nuclear community, because with numbers comes strength and support. And, you know, some people may be really good at growing tomatoes. Some people may be really good at fixing plumbing. The people who grow tomatoes are useless at plumbing, so they share. And it works.
Well, I'm a prime example as well.
Your audio's dropping, Carl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting worse and worse as time goes by.
Okay, let me drop out and come back in again.
All right. So, well, it's only 10 minutes less, so it's not a huge loss. But thanks, everybody, for the well wishes in the chat. I certainly appreciate it. I mean, if I had the ability to do this stuff and just give it away and do it to see the smiles on faces, I would most definitely do so. But at this point, we're just not quite there yet. And if we all share the burden, then it's not a burden anymore. And everybody gets what they need. Everybody has a better life. And I'm very, very, very encouraged when I look at this system. There was a study done years ago. Can't remember where it was or who brought it out, but I remember some of the details on it. And the gist of the concept was that if nothing else changed except money was removed from daily life equation, nothing else changed, the system would run just fine. It would chug along and be totally happy. We don't need to have that accounting, because that's all the money is an accounting. And we don't need it. If people are not greedy, if they're not trying to take advantage, the system will work just fine without it. And that's the kind of life that I want to grow up in. That's the kind of life I don't have children because I won't bring them into this world. I won't subject them to this garbage that we've been through. And I realized that when I was 16 years old, and told myself at that point, I'm not having kids. Not until something changes. Not until they can be guaranteed to have a better life than I had. And at this point, I'm very happy I made that decision, because life would be extremely difficult right now if I had kids.
Yeah, I can attest to that. If my audio is any better, I just wanted to mention that I do operate under private contracts, and it's interesting to see how the people I interact with deal with it, because of course there's no GST, HST, and none of that stuff on any of my invoices. And I typically operate under services only, so it's an exchange of labor. I don't provide any kind of hardware or any kind of product. And if I did, in the case of I have to buy something as a replacement item for any of my clients, then it literally is the cost. If I had to buy it, then they pay for what I paid. So there is no profit, because that's where you'll get in trouble when you start adding stuff to the cost of certain items. So yeah, it's an interesting route, because many people say, well, you should be earning thousands and thousands now, you should be paying GST. Why are you not paying GST? Well, my answer to them always is because they don't pay me.
Yeah. When
they pay me, then I'll collect it.
That's right, because you don't have to work for these people without getting compensated for your time. Mm-hmm. Clive brought up something.
The looks are unbelievable.
Oh,
it's comical to see the faces.
It's hilarious watching some of the reactions. Clive brought up something. Nothing I can do now, as I retired over 20 years ago. Clive, that's not true. What are you good at? What can you teach others? What service can you provide that they would benefit from? I mean, I struggled for years. I'm a tool and die maker by trade. I've been trained to cut metal and make shapes and generate tooling for manufacturing, which is not something you can do in your living room. It took me several years to figure out that I do have skills that I can pass on, knowledge I can pass on, perspective that I can pass on that people appreciate. And some of my interests, the interests with the Kesh Foundation, with the technology there, I found that I have a little more talent than most people display. I can see it. When I see the concepts, I can see how that all works. And I can explain it in a way that regular folk, people who have never been exposed to this before, can grasp it. And that's a valuable thing. And that's what I leverage in order to feed my dog and pay my bills. There's got to be something that you can do, Clive, that you can leverage now, because one of the big thing that's missing in this society is the kids going to the grandparents for knowledge. And granted, most of the grandparents, or at least a large percentage of the grandparents, are so drugged and fluoridated, and they sit there drooling on themselves, which is sad, because these people have vast arrays of knowledge, vast wisdom that could be so useful to us right now. The same thing with the indigenous cultures, the elders of the tribes. Well, in North America, it would be the native Indian tribes. These people have incredible knowledge, healing knowledge of using the materials in the local area, how to survive in the local area, if nothing else. Vast amounts of wisdom is being lost because we're not accessing it. We're not looking for it anymore. And that's sad. I mean, I'm only 54 years old. Well, 53, almost 54. So I got a long ways to go yet. And I keep saying over and over, I don't know everything. I know, I have a pretty good idea of what I know, and I'm happy to share it. There's not a lot of people that are like that. The guy who fixes your plumbing isn't going to teach you how to maintain your pipes, because the system of lack requires him to keep that secret so that he always has a job. And I work with people like Dr. Jeremy Ayres, who their goal is to work themselves out of a job. They want to make sure, like Dr. Ayres, he trains his patients, he trains his clients so that they don't have to come back. And that's the kind of world I want to live in.
Me too. Okay, I know we're coming up to the end, but I just wondered if anybody else had something to say, wanted to come in and just make a comment or ask a quick question. There's lots of people in there, so we must be doing well if nobody's got anything to ask.
Yeah, it makes me really nervous when I got 40 people in here and they don't come up with any questions. Either I'm doing really, really good, which I doubt, or we're totally missing the boat. I don't know.
On my own part, Patrick here again.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, there's people that are actually doing this process, and I'm more than content on supporting them to have them bring it to fruition for everyone. But I know in my own experience that I can only do so much, so I know my office type thing, and that's what I'm going to put my efforts.
Oh, I'm certainly. I'm not saying stretch out, get out of your comfort zone. At least not as far as making money goes, or earning a living, or supporting yourself and your family. Do what you love, first of all, because then it's not work. Do what you're good at, secondly, because if you're good at it, there's going to be people who aren't, who need to be. And it's those people you're going to seek out. And thirdly, do what you have to do, in that order. So, look at it in that light. What do you love to do? Do you love to create art? Do you love to create music? If so, awesome. I mean, if it's some sort of non-tangible thing like music, it might be a little more difficult to find an outlet for it. But if you're really good at woodworking, if you're really good at, say, roofing, for just putting up a roof, you can teach people how to fix their roofs. You can put up a YouTube. You can do instructional videos, that sort of thing. You can get a name for yourself, and people will pay you to train them.
Well, there is a cool saying out there that I've seen on YouTube or heard on YouTube was somebody from your area, which in BC, telling people to make cool shit and put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to make a business. But in closing, I really should get going here. If there's any WFS members in the room who still haven't been sorted out, you can either contact John here and he'll relay the message to me, or you can contact me directly and I'll make sure that you get access to the members only site while we're transitioning to new servers.
Yep, and on that note, we will be opening up. I had a note from Patrick. Looks like we're going to be opening up a Freeman section of Essentio Mentium. If anybody wants to get involved in that, let us know, and we will sort you out. I don't know what if you want to actually be part of the society itself. There is a fee involved because there's paperwork, and it does cost the society money to generate this stuff. Unfortunately.
But wait, if I can just curtail your statement right there.
Sure.
It is once in a lifetime fee. So you pay your fee, you're a member for life type thing. But that being said, you also have to provide the notice of mutual consent and a passport style photo so that you can be issued a member card. And at that point, you would become a card carrying member.
Yes, because it is a named society. And for the power of that named society, there are certain things that need to be in place. But once they're in place, they are extremely powerful. And when you learn that power, things get a little easier. So on that note, guys, thank you very much for your participation. Even though you were just listening, that's okay. Not a problem. We managed to fill 2 hours. And hopefully got some more information out, got people thinking, looking at it from a different point of view, different perspective. And that's our goal here.
Certainly, and I'd like to thank everybody. I'm glad Patrick managed to find us. That was a welcome addition to today's show. I'm ecstatic to see so many attending this week. It was great, and I hope everybody really did manage to learn something, and hopefully they're ready to know more. And if that's the case, then we're going to be around one way or another on Discord, our weekly shows, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. Thanks again, John, as always, acting as producer and co-host, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, thanks again, Carl. Everybody, have a great week, and don't stop asking questions. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Carl, John. Bye, Carl, John.
Bye.
And Patrick. Thank you.